Hi, everyone, and welcome to another session of Power in Her Words. Today, I have with me Nadia. Nadia, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today.
Yeah, thank you, Aleena. And I think you're the first person who's pronounced my name perfectly. Nadia, like in a very strong accent. So I was like, oh, this feels good. Like you're saying my name right.
I'm glad. I'm glad. So we'll jump right into it. We have a lot to learn from you. So without wasting any time, let's talk about your journey, which is remarkable to say the least, right? So you led digital transformation for Clark County. You served about 2.3 million residents, right? And then you switched gears and now you're at Salesforce and you're shaping their AI strategy. So what has their journey been like, and how has your personal background and your global experience come together to shape that journey and then shape the way you um, perform in those leadership roles that you have?
I'll kind of start with my humble beginnings. I think that helps craft where I am today. So I have this. Usually, people talk about their rags to riches story, but I'll kind of talk about riches to rags. It's the opposite. So we were a very influential family in Karachi, Pakistan, and so my mom was a very successful entrepreneur. She led multi-million-dollar business. It was a garment factory. We were doing business with Iraq and Jordan and the U.S. and UK, all over the world, essentially. And then one day we were kind of just forced to leave the country. And we had some things politically that happened that required us to leave suddenly. So we left everything behind. And honestly, I share this story because it's great when you see a lot of things on social media where you're like, wow, this person's so successful. But they're never an overnight success. Sometimes success takes 20 years, and maybe there's a lot of rebuilding that comes into play. Maybe there's a lot of grit and resilience that comes into play as you are growing in your career. So I bring that story up because honestly, based on my mom, we all actually left together. We moved to the US. And in between, we had pit stops. We lived in Dubai for a bit, we lived in London for a little bit. But honestly, the theme was very much the same. And every city that I transitioned to, I kind of realized that one of my goals in life, I'm a very mission oriented person, and I wanted to make the greatest impact on the largest number of people. And the only way you can do that is by providing services, right? And what better to work in government? So I think that's how my career trajectory moved along the way. It's like, oh my gosh, when I moved to Dubai, I'm like, oh, there's a whole immigration process. Oh my gosh, the taxes look different. How are their streets so much better than anywhere else I've lived? There's little things that kind of craft like, oh, cool. I wish I could be part of this, or I want to be part of this. And that's really what shaped my journey into joining government. And I worked in government for 15 years. I worked as an employee, as a vendor, as a consultant. I did all different roles and I got to see different things of how government operates and functions. And honestly, it's so fascinating, especially in the US, because there's all these different nuances that you don't even think about as a resident of the community because you just expect certain things. But the inner workings is what fascinated me. And honestly, it was a privilege of a lifetime to serve as the chief information officer for Clark County. And if people don't know, that's in Las Vegas, Nevada. Um, Home of 42 million visitors a year. I had the privilege of serving 10,000 employees, 2.4 million residents, 38 different departments. And I really got to see what transformation means, whether it has to do with transforming somebody's life who's coming in for rental assistance or child welfare or some kind of support, all the way to basic services like, oh, I need a business license, or how do I get a permit to build a building? All those little things you never think about. I think that is the impact that you're able to make. And the best part is once you roll out something, so let's say we redesigned our website and we made it more services oriented rather than websites. You know how government websites are so full of words? It's like, how do we move away from that? So we were already thinking of like a chat GPT for government style of services where you get the answer you're looking for without having to dig. So I think that is part of the transformation that I loved seeing across, like, wow, you're like a tiny cog in this big wheel, and how can you make a huge impact along with all these other mission oriented services folks? So anyway, that's a little bit about the transition, about how I came into government. And if you want, I can kind of share about Salesforce too. I don't think I
Yeah,
talked about
please. Yeah. I would love to hear about
so,
how, after being so passionate
transit.
about your work in the government, you moved to Salesforce and how are you making impact there and what's your motivation?
It's funny. So I was loving working on the government side of the house. And I love to up level. So I did my degree from UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, graduated with computer science there. Then I did my executive MBA from University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA. And once I did that, I realized, oh wow, I have a skill set of tech and business. And it would be great to see if I can utilize some of those MBA skills, which sometimes in government you don't get to because it's just a different facet of it. So I then, at one point, one of my friends, it was very random, he sent me this listing. It was called Digital Transformation Executive at Salesforce. And back in the time, which was now about 4 years ago, I had no idea what Salesforce does. I'm like, but they're a CRM company. What do they do for government? I have no idea. He's like, you know what? You should just apply for it. And I was like, okay, cool. I applied on a Tuesday night for fun with no intent to hear back. And I get a call on Wednesday morning. And it was from a recruiter. And he's like, oh my gosh, we love your background. You have everything that we're looking for. We're trying to expand our government vertical. And then I just started talking to different people. And it turns out a lot of the hiring people on the Salesforce side also were ex-government. So I felt that this was one way to stay in the public sector, still have my foot, but just reimagine how I serve a little bit differently. And honestly, I have loved the journey. I still feel like I'm with my public service peers. I'm fortunate to go and do a lot of public speaking, meet with customers, talk about outcome-based approach and the messaging, positioning. That's all the stuff that's very exciting. So I still have my foot in public sector. I kind of have never left.
And in that context and in that setting, what are some of the biggest opportunities that you think you have um, in trying to transform how government serves citizens, right? I know that you've done that in the setting of being an employee of the government, but now on the other side, like how are you going about it? What ideas do you have?
When I served in government, I would get about 400 emails a day from different vendors who were pitching and selling a product. And to be honest, when you're on the other side of the house, all the emails sound the same. All you want to modernize, all we have cybersecurity, all you want to have a great infrastructure, all the emails sound very similar. So, what's your differentiation? And I think this is the stuff I focused on, which is let's not talk about product, but let's talk about outcomes. So, from a government setting, what are you trying to do? There is public safety initiatives, there is health and human services, there is transportation. There's these big verticals that government just always has to do. And these are what I call rinse and repeat plays. Essentially, everybody has to issue a license, everybody has to issue a permit, everybody needs to pay property taxes, so on and so forth. And so you kind of change the conversation in terms of go to market strategy from a product based outcome to a service based outcome. So, as an example, a lot of the conversations we have, especially in the age of AI, this is the best era, by the way, we could be in right now. And I want to talk about solopreneurs too for a second later on. But in the age that we're in now, if you're not utilizing artificial intelligence, whether it's for predictive analysis to predict what could happen, or from a generative AI perspective, which is the era we're in now, everybody knows ChatGPT. How are you leveraging it to make government more efficient, more streamlined, and having a digital front door? As an example, let's say I'm Jeremy Smith, and Jeremy Smith comes in all the time. He's the same person. He always complains about potholes. By the way, he also submitted a complaint for graffiti. Oh, and he also has a license in Clark County, Las Vegas. And by the way, he needs to pay his property tax. 9 out of 10 times, you can never find any of these services easily. You're typing, you're literally going through 9 different portals, and you have to create a new profile. It is extremely hard to have that Amazon, Uber, Airbnb type of experience. And the whole point was how can we bring this into government where if somebody comes in, now we can do personalized journeys. Where if Jeremy's coming in, just show the 4 services that he always comes in here for every single year. Make it frictionless, make it easy, make it streamlined. And don't provide a whole bunch of words that nobody can read or understand. Make it very layman's terms, like a 10-year-old could understand. So I think those are some of the things that we efficiently, honestly, just work on because Salesforce is an experience company. And the whole point is delivering amazing experiences. And that's what we bring into government.
And I think your time spent with the government gave you that insight into the actual user pain point that you're now able to transform via the work that you do at Salesforce. So all of that just came together in a beautiful way. And so you said that we're in like the best time ever, right? So you're a huge proponent of AI and also of thriving alongside AI and not being replaced by it because there's a lot of hoopla about how AI is going to take your jobs and so on and so forth, right? So, can you share an example or from a practical setting or a project or a use case where you saw that balance come to life? I know we talked a little bit about how you want to use that to streamline the government services experience, but other than that, something that comes to mind that you'd like to share.
I have so many different ideas about it. So, yes, AI is all about augmentation. So, I always say if you're an average person right now, use AI to make you above average. Okay. And that's kind of how I like to think of it is okay, whether it has to do with content generation, whether it's to do with writing, whether it has to do with developing your personal brand, whether it has to do with executive presence, whether you're looking to get a promotion, all of those things come into play if you do it right. And what I mean by that, invest in learning about the new tools. There's so many good tools now. Learn how to write a good prompt, which really means how do you ask good questions, with context. Imagine that you're onboarding an intern or maybe a PhD, and you don't have to pay them other than $20 a month. Okay, this is what you're paying for with all these enterprise versions. Allow them, I think the best use of AI is to use it for brainstorming. Play as your devil's advocate. And I think the people who are afraid to use it are the people who are going to be left behind. I think that's a firm use case. As you can see, there's so many companies right now. I just recently read a stat on there's more solopreneurs now than there've ever been before. And when I see solopreneurs, I mean women own businesses as well. You have the opportunity to level up and you are in exactly the same playing field as everybody else. So if you can't hire 10 people, great, you can hire 10 AI agents. You can build agents to do certain things, whether it is intake, whether it's prospecting, whether it's outreach, whether it's social media campaigning. Even now you can create a podcast, right? With just like we could take both of us together, put it in Notebook LM, and it'll create a podcast for us. So there's so many different things you can do to elevate from a personal brand perspective and from a professional perspective to really grow the company, the revenue, depending on your goals. So I feel, and I really mean it, when I say we're in the best tech era possible, things have become easier. Like back in the day when my mom, coming back to the original story, I mean, look, 30, 40 years ago, we didn't have access to any tools. You didn't have Google Maps, you didn't have Notebook LM, you didn't have OpenAI, you didn't have Anthropic, you didn't have anything, but now you do. So what are you going to do with this? And I think kind of focusing on the replacement and the fear conversation, focusing on how can it help me today? Let me elevate myself. How can I upskill myself? And I think investing in upskilling is so important right now.
Absolutely. And while it's really helpful, and like you said, AI should be used to augment your existing skill set and your capabilities, right? But it's also a bit of an overwhelming process, especially at the scale that AI is evolving. People find it hard to keep up. But you're somebody who's worked in the government, who's worked in continues to work in academia and then also is part of the industry, right? So you're like at the intersection of these three main domains. So, how are you helping or advising people how to adapt to AI and the pace at which it is evolving? And in your view, what skills are needed to make sure that we're able to have AI fluency in the future?
I recently did a keynote where we talked about productivity hacks. And part of the productivity hacks were, look, let's just talk about where we're at right now in the cycle of technology. And this is moving so incredibly fast. So let's say from a government perspective, usually governments put out RFPs, requests for proposals. Those take a year to develop because you're documenting all the requirements. And let's say you're looking for an AI tool. The requirements that you've put in today for an AI tool are going to be obsolete in the next 2 months. But sometimes these processes take over a year. So, what I tell people is as you're adapting, this things are moving so fast. Yes, it can be overwhelming, but go all in on one tool. You don't need 9 or 10 different tools. You're solving for a specific gap. Figure out what tool would be best to fix your gap. I think what I see is a lot of one shadow AI in organizations. So if you don't have a policy, if you don't allow people to use it, people are going to download and use it anyway. Okay. So you need to have that openness to, yes, we understand that this is here and here's our guardrails around it. So that's one. Number two is allow people to safely experiment. Like you need to give people a sandbox. What I end up seeing is I was in a meeting. I can't tell you how many AI note takers joined the meeting and there was no people. It was just everybody's Otter AI, Read AI, I don't know, something AI note taker that joined the meeting, but there were no humans on the call. That is using AI at a disadvantage. Okay.
Mhm.
This is, you're not really augmenting. Now, at this point, you're kind of using it more from a replacement perspective. So we don't have that human connection anymore. And I feel human connection has never been more important now than ever before. Just because I'm seeing more and more community events happen where people get to connect with people and they're sharing this is how it's helping my journey in terms of productivity hacks or travel hacks or day-to-day stuff. I talked to another lady on a personal perspective. She's like, oh, I created my whole nutrition plan. I created a workout plan. I created a, travel itinerary because I want to travel the world. I have a financial advisor now who's Claude, who actually helps me work with my finances. All those things have become very accessible, but it's how you use it and how you use it correctly. So I can go on and on, honestly, about the augmentation aspect of it, but I feel the main takeaway here is yes, it can be overwhelming, but you decide what gap you're trying to solve. So don't let it overwhelm you. Use it to up level yourself and make your life better. And I feel like I'm such an AI junkie. I mean, I started a newsletter on it. I'm like, my gosh, it's literally changed my life. I have 9 clones of me, and I'm very okay with getting replaced. Very okay with it. Like if I can have stuff on automation that's ready, like for instance, when you reached out to me, Aleena, I had an auto draft that was set up, ready to go.
Oh,
I just vetted it. I had everything already built. I have the calendar set up that when you send it out, it'll look through my open, available time slots. It'll book it for me. So I feel like I have an executive assistant that I've built that does everything for me. So I can actually focus on more creative tasks, more of the things that would help me from a career perspective, more complex things that AI can't do right now, relationships, friendships, all those kinds of things.
that's pretty cool that you have those clones set up who are taking away all that admin work and giving you the space to focus. And also that advice that you shared where we should focus on one tool by identifying a gap that like is pretty relevant even for me, right? Because I work in tech and I'm always trying to keep up with these new tools that are coming and I end up just getting overwhelmed. So this is great that you need to identify that one gap and then see which tool is the best fit for it. Building a little bit on using AI responsibly, which is something you hinted at just now. You've been recognized as one of the top 50 AI leaders for driving responsible and innovative adoption. So, what does responsible AI mean for you in practical terms, and especially in the public sector context?
I'll give you an example. So I was one of the initial first users of ChatGPT. And I loved it. And I was like, you know what? I started putting all of my stuff into it. It has my resume and it knows about me. And I have like deep, thoughtful conversations. It's basically like a therapist slash teacher slash mentor slash guide slash whatever you want to call it. And in 2022, I asked it, based on everything you know about me, what do you think I look like? And it actually gave a picture and I posted about it. It's an image of a man with a beard, with a jacket and a laptop. And because I talked so much about tech, it just imagined me as a guy because that's what's prevalent in all the data points that it's pulled from. I found that to be very interesting. I didn't challenge it because it didn't ask me questions at the time. Now, fast forward 3 years in 2025, I did the exact same prompt to ask it, what do you think I look like now based on every conversation that we've had in the last 3 years or in the last month, in the last 6 months? And it actually came back and prompted me for more stuff. It's like, oh, I know a little bit about you, but I actually don't fully have a picture of you. And I was like, yeah, but I've uploaded a whole bunch of selfies. Like, you know what I look like. So it's like, okay, you know what? Let me build an image of you. And this time it actually was a woman. But it was nothing to do with me. It was some weird crafted woman that it thought that I could look like. I had dark hair. I had the same jacket as the man in 2022, but it kind of crafted an image of me that really wasn't me. So when we talk about ethics, when we talk about responsible AI, bias comes into play, and that's very heavy, especially with all the data points that AI pulls in, whether it's through Reddit or Pinterest or social media or community platforms. This is the image that it has. So we're not quite there yet where we can be fully autonomous and fully trusted with the information that we get back. So where responsible AI comes in, does it have accountability? Is there transparency? Do we have ethics guardrails in place? Where how are we going to do this? Imagine it in a public sector setting where I'm hiring and recruiting candidates. If I am hiring and recruiting and I put in a specific job description and it only gives me males or it only gives me females based on if I do an AI based recruiting, will the answers be correct? Will I get the right candidates sifted through, or will it block certain people? And I think this is where it becomes very tricky and it has to be monitored, and you have to have a human in the loop. This could be very different tomorrow because tech is moving so fast. But as of today, there are some biases, there are some things you have to be very careful about. And you have to go in with open eyes. So I think it's okay to be an evangelist for AI, which I am, but you also got to know the risks. And you also got to understand how to mitigate them and what use cases it's best for and what use cases it's still learning and getting better at.
That's a pretty interesting example that you shared, which also sort of points towards this bias. Even in 2025 in tech, the representation is more male than female, and you're somebody who's shaping that, right? You're not just shaping technology, you're shaping representation of women within tech. So what's your advice for women who are trying to break into leadership roles in tech generally, and of course in AI and digital transformation context specifically, because that's an area that you've championed?
If I could go back in time, Aleena, to be honest, I would. This is the best solopreneur economy possible. I would start my own business. Now you don't need 9 or 10 different people to do your marketing, to grow your revenues, to help build a business plan. If you have an idea, you can go from idea to execution within a day. As an example, I will highly encourage, especially women. I feel like sometimes women Mm, I think we have like the superwoman complex. And what I mean by that, you have to be perfect in every single area. I want to be a perfect mom. I need to be a perfect daughter. I need to be a perfect worker. And if I don't meet all the requirements that are listed in a job description, I will not apply. Okay, this is a very women specific problem. And I've seen that. I've hired hundreds of people and I have always women reaching out. They're like, you know what? I meet like maybe 2 or 3 requirements, but not all of them.
Yeah.
Like, you need to apply. Okay. But I think this is where we're very different than males. Males go all in. They're like, oh, cool. I meet 30% of the things. I'm going to be so
Yeah.
great at it. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
I think women come with an inherent, like, we're very hard on ourselves. So, my advice would be go in. If there's a job that you want, go after it. Connect with the people in the organization. Do your research. Try to talk to people and be like, what's the culture like? I want to learn better. How do I adapt myself to go for this role? But don't limit yourself. I think we're very good about limiting ourselves before we even approach anything. So, one, stop doing that. Two, if you have an idea in mind, for the love of God, go after it. Like, I think this is the best time to do it. My daughter and I created an app. We were bored on a weekend. I was like, you know what? Let's just do something fun. We used Lovable and Replit. They're like vibe coding, very
Yeah.
cool, very quick
Mm-hmm.
apps. We created the prompt in ChatGPT. We put it into Lovable and it created an app for us. Believe it or not, just for fun, it was an interior design app. We moved into a new house and I was like, you know what? I don't know how to interior design. Let's build an app for it. We launched it. I put it on my personal Instagram just for fun. And we're like, you know what? It's $20. You can upload your photos. It'll recreate your home design amazingly well with your aesthetics. I think I got within the first hour 8 people who signed up. So,
Very
and
cool.
that was her. Like she made the money. And I was like, you know what? You're in the best. And now imagine this was just very organic. We created an MVP that solved a very specific problem for people and we launched it. So the time between idea to execution, launch, and monetization, it has deeply condensed. And
Wow.
now we're talking hours versus months or years. Completely different phenomena than what your mom would have done 20 years ago, right? So I think these are some of the kind of things I like to tell women. I'm like, don't be afraid of using these tools. Learn, upskill, try it yourself, and then go for the roles that you dream about. Because what's the worst that's going to happen? Sure, they'll say no. Okay, but it's maybe no today. So I think you have to keep that perspective in mind.
That's great advice. And you know how you said that's very true. We women sort of self-reject before anybody else rejects us. And I mean, that's kind of natural because of the societies that we grow up in, right? But we've internalized it so much that even without anybody else rejecting us, we do it for them or on their behalf already. So it's been a delight speaking to you today. It's been inspiring for me, and I'm sure it will be for people who will watch this. So thank you again for your time and for sharing your learnings. And I hope that we speak and collaborate in the future as well.
Oh my gosh, I would love that. And people can connect with me on LinkedIn. I think that's the biggest platform where I share a lot of stories. It's both personal and professional. Sign up for my newsletter if you want to take a look at some of the hacks that I post. And I am so happy to be on this. Thank you so much for having me, Aleena.
Thanks.